Happy Wednesday. Welcome back to Ready Set Real Estate. You are listening to the best real estate education podcast around. We are on episode 198. Listen, we are 2 episodes shy of our 200th episode. So I am really pumped because we just get better and better the more we do this. Listen, you need to invite someone to listen to today's show. My guest today is Thomas TJ Loftin, and TJ and I go way back. So this is going to be conversational. And we are going to delve into something that a lot of you are now seeing. But this brother here has been discussing, has been living it, has been experiencing it, and has a foresight. In fact, I think TJ has now coined himself as the economic futurist. And I'm not mad at it, TJ. I'm not mad at you. He's coined himself the economic futurist. So I do want to bring TJ to the show. Welcome to the show, TJ. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. And yourself? Thank you for the opportunity to share.
Absolutely. I could not resist having you on the show, especially after recent headlines. Now, I'm here in Cali. You are a Compton, California native, and you have been traveling. And when I see things that have to do with gentrification, displacement, business bankruptcies, relocations, I go, boom, I need to jump on the phone and call TJ and say, "What's TJ, what do you think about this?" And he's like, "Yep, I wrote it in my book. This is what I talked about."
Look at that book.
Yes, he's like, "Let me get my book." And I have yours on my bookshelf, but it's too far from me. You can go ahead and do that. Well, I want to just invite people to share. Let's just do over logistics real quick. So, want to give disclaimers. The information provided on the show, of course, is not to be considered legal or tax advice. Please seek legal or tax advice from those reputable licensed professionals. Yes. For those of you who are new to me, I am known as Super Agent Lisa Gillett, also formerly Lisa Puerto. So if you see a lot of my content in the past and my books were under Lisa Puerto, but I am an active real estate broker. So 10 toes to the concrete. What I share, what I speak is what I live. Our brokerage is Devenio Estates here in Southern California, and we're definitely focusing on our senior communities, specializing in probates and foreclosures and short sales, because now the reality is we are in that season. We are in that cycle. So I'd be remiss if I don't touch on the fact that what we're experiencing and seeing, it serves, see, my husband and I, TJ, were talking about this the other day. It serves no one, right? Because real estate, when you talk about purchases, brings new loans, new monies, new furniture, new construction. There's a newness, and that's the ecosystem that real estate brings. So when people are sitting on properties for 40 years,
Right.
talk to DJ, 40 years, right?
The money stops coming. Gentrification brings money. It opens the door. People, if I've been in my house for 30, 40 years, I've already fixed it up. I'm good. It's cool. I'm comfortable.
Right.
Now, if all of a sudden I'm forced to sell it, I'm going to take my $1 million gentrification money. Now I got to go buy, I want granite. I want some electric, some stainless steel appliances, or,
Right.
I need to paint this room. Oh, I need all new ceiling fans in the whole house. So there goes Home Depot, Lowe's. Here comes all these workers, these contractors. Matter of fact, I need you to build this out for me. It's a lot of money being spent now. That's why they're always going to have gentrification every 30 years, because that's about how long the average mortgage is. So
There
every
it is.
30
There
years,
it is. So
construction.
before I do that, I just wanted you guys to hear from the man himself. But let me just read his quick bio. And there's really nothing quick about him, because you're talking about an extensive 30 plus years just doing what he's doing. So TJ here, today's guest, and I'm really honored to have you, has been an advocate for business and home ownership. He's got a long history of identifying and fighting wrongful politics, especially when disproportionately affecting the Black community. So my son and I were having this discussion of Black History Month, and he asked me something about it. I said, Poppy, we're Black every day, every year. So we're that's a just, every day, every year experience. So when we get to highlight and have these discussions about how the disparities, the socioeconomic inequities in real estate, in housing, in loans, because now it's coming to the surface. So now we're talking about it. Now we're seeing mainstream is wanting to do something about it. So I can appreciate that, but I implore you and I encourage you all to be vigilant. Work with those professionals, right? Work with folks that you know. TJ has been one that's been coaching people. So during his last 15 years, his voice and collaborative efforts range from advocating for residents affected by Section 8 scandal of the Antelope Valley. So some of you in California are familiar with just that displacement of people, right? The LMI, low to median income people, primarily underserved, underrepresented communities who were displaced to the out of areas of Lancaster and Palmdale, right? It's interesting what happened during the pandemic boom, and we'll get into that as it relates to those areas. To the mass displacement of the primary Black communities within the urban Los Angeles, up against companies like, and this is where we're going to go today, Silicon Valley tech companies, Metro, Elon Musk, SpaceX, the NFL, BlackRock, and other major corporations have swooped into the region, buying up thousands of properties and businesses. TJ is a seasoned investor, he predicted this domino effect, and has been, currently is endangering home ownership nationally. He's a renowned international business leader, celebrity car builder and manufacturer, real estate, land development, gentrification expert, and public speaker, author, and wealth coach. Like I said, you all can learn more. I'm going to drop his link tree because he has authored the book, Monetizing Gentrification, Building Black Ownership, built around solutions and strategies for growing our community globally. TJ, you've been busy, man.
Yeah. Likewise.
You've been, you know what? Let me rephrase that. I feel like bees are busy. You've been productive. And I normally, when people say, oh, you're a busy later, I appreciate saying more of a productive. I'm just not out here spinning my head, right? Spinning my wheels.
Right.
I'm very intentional. And so have you been. And so it's just been fun watching your growth. You've been recent on some, you've been a returning guest on Judge Joe Brown's show. Very controversial, hot topic. He's ruffling some feathers, and you've been doing that for some time. So you're oftentimes not really the favorite, but they still can't help have you on their panels, right? On their shows. Talk to us about why. Why is it that you're not the favorite, but they need you?
Well, I talk about stuff that haven't happened yet, and they're like, we can't talk about that. But then years later, it becomes heavy duty, and they're like, well, wait a minute, you guys aren't talking about it, but TJ been talking about that. So that gives that bad look. So now they can't get rid of me, so they got to keep me around, because they're being told you can't talk, don't talk about this, and now it's like it goes from, okay, well, since you can't talk about it and he's making it national, okay, here's your talking points. But if he brings this up, you talk about this,
Right.
It's just.
So here's why I wanted to have you on the show. Just for many reasons. We get to, catch up publicly. This is the live, but recently there has been discussions about the transit connector here in LA. This would be similar to the Beltline happening in Atlanta, right? And so here there is going to be a displacement of 44 businesses here in LA within the Inglewood tract. And I'm going to do a screen share real quick because I definitely want to talk about this. For those of you who are not familiar that this is going on, I find it very interesting when we talk about, being present, being at the meetings, being at the table. And here we have a list. This is a list, TJ, of the business. This is an 8-page list, by the way, of the businesses that are going to be displaced. And I was reading into this that some of them is going to be will come back. Vons is coming back. Planet Fitness is coming back. So they're going to come back in a newly constructed building. It's going to cost $35 million to relocate these businesses. Can you touch on kind of can you touch on just this movement happening here to put in this transit system that some people were saying, yay, we need it. And some people were saying, oh, we know we're going to lose properties. We're going to lose businesses. I wasn't expecting, me personally, I was not expecting 44 businesses to be impacted by this.
We've lost way more than that. We've lost way more than that.
Right.
Clearly, that, and that's a scary situation because where are they going to be relocated to? You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Where are they going to be relocated to? Before I even agree to something like that, I would have to be, everywhere in Inglewood is a hot spot. It's like firecracker market. It's booming. So you're going to definitely be relocated away from your customer base. They're not going to find anything. I don't think they're going to find anything local, but that's a very, and then it's like, what's the landlord going to be like? Are you going to qualify to be moved there? So a lot of those businesses might end up just folding. That language sounds good. That's like the affordable housing logo moniker. It's like it's realistic.
Yeah, and so as you look at this track map right here, right? One of the things that came to mind for me was, so $35 million, but you're talking about businesses that have been rooted here and have built a clientele. There's
Right.
no guarantee that the people who've been supporting the businesses in this area, right, in this neighborhood community, are going to go travel to support them wherever they're now moved.
Nope, not at all.
Can you put a dollar amount on that loss, right? In fact, one of the businesses not in this track, but within this area had asked me to recently do a cost analysis for them, as they're also experiencing, the impact of changes in real estate. And I thought about this and I said, man, you just don't realize how the trickle down effect from what we've seen with the Federal Reserve trying to force the slowdown of the market, which now days on market have now been more than 30 days. So they've succeeded in forcing that. But at the same token, you've been sharing an interesting perspective with me and keeping me focused. And one of the things you talked about last time, you said this was a developer's market, right? There's not a market crash. Touch on that for us, because I think people really need to hear that perspective of overall the bigger picture, because it doesn't benefit the economy we call capitalism when people are holding their home for 20, 30, 40, 50 years.
Well, every 30 years, there's going to be a major disruption in the economy. There's going to be a lot of gentrification happening so that they can create some commerce in the community. Meaning, if I'm in my house for 30 or 40 years and it's paid off, okay, the bank's not making any money anymore. If I'm in my house, I've already done what I wanted. I'm happy with the way it looks. I'm cool. I'm going to wait till I retire. And then I'm going to go buy a new house somewhere eventually down the road. So I don't need anything. So now, if I decide to retire and I take this gentrification money, hey, now the new people's gonna come in the same area. I sell my house for 1.4 million, hypothetically speaking. The new people who bought it, they're gonna come in, they're gonna say, oh, we gotta redo the house. Boom, spend 200,000 restoring it, new ceiling fans, new everything, HVAC systems, stainless steel, everything, desert landscaping, et cetera, et cetera. So now Home Depot sales are up. They're hiring more people. They're ordering more stuff. They're bringing in more expensive stuff because the people who are here, they were comfortable with the $500 refrigerators. But now the people who can afford to pay 1.4 million, they're like, I want a Sub-Zero. I want a Viking. I want some Wolf. So now they're going to come in with a $50,000, $100,000 kitchen package alone. So the money is just circulating. Everybody's making money. Wolf is hiring, Viking is hiring, Sub-Zero is hiring, HVAC systems are hiring, painting companies are hiring. So gentrification generates a lot of money. But getting back to that list of people who went out of business, a solution that I would say, if I was in a place for 30 years This was my brick and mortar for 30 years, and you want to displace me? My question will be, what are you going to put here? And how long is it going to take? Oh, Metro? Okay, great. You can temporarily relocate me over here, but I want you to build me out right here inside of the walkway of this metro. I want to have your 8,000 people a day, an hour, who's getting off of these trains who are going to the airport to be in my come stop by my business. So I want to be in the 2024 brand new opened, brand new structure, right back where I already was. But this newly updated version that you guys are building, which is probably going to be a live, work, eat, play city. So guarantee me, I want to be back here because I know once they get rid of us, they tear down the old commercial real estate and bring in the big units, the big live, work, eat, play cities. They're going to have residential upstairs, and they're going to have commercial downstairs. I want one of those. So if you want me to move, I want it in contract, and I want it locked in at a fixed rate at this much. Because what happens is they'll be pushing us out, but they'll be talking to somebody else saying, hey, we're going to bring in these live, work, eat, play city, and it's going to look like this. And you want to buy it, you better pay for it now. But we won't be scheduled to open until 2025. But you're going to have to pay that $6,000 a month just to lock in that space until we get it open. That's how that works.
And that's accurate. That those are anchor tenants. I shared, I found it interesting. I wonder, what attorneys, which attorneys, essentially, who had an attorney to negotiate that, because Vons is coming back. Vons is being removed. It's being torn down, but they're going to be placed back in the newly constructed commercial building. But what about all the mom and pop businesses? Were my question, right? Those are my did they have the resources and the attorneys that were at the table? Did they have the business coaches to come in and say, no, this is what we need? And I just find it interesting, again, when I look at things like eminent domain and different things that have taken place historically, when you look at who was at the table in the conversation, you go, you kind of question the advisory team that was there. Speaking of advisory team, let's kind of touch on real quick on Bruce's Beach. Bruce's Beach is now, the family's now deciding to sell back to the county because it is zoned for practically nothing useful beyond its current use. I find that suspicious. What are your thoughts? Especially when we talk about it's the county who, we're talking about the city and the county who lists zoning ordinances, but then in this state, in this case, they're saying, well, they can't really use it for housing or anything else. But yet, once upon a time, it was a resort.
Well, see, the way that should have worked, and I believe that's a bigger strategy, which is now currently playing out again in Santa Monica. I believe I know that we are a lot more educated when it comes down to real estate. So now, because of that, there's a lot of people who've been taken to TikTok, which is why they have a war with TikTok. They hate TikTok because now where people whose land have been stolen, they could never get any exposure to promote that. Nobody was going to do a live coverage on the news saying that Hilton Hotel stole my land. They got my land. So what they did is they said, let's give them some money. But we're going to keep the land. Because you remember when this story first broke, they said that they gave the option they're going to lease it back to the city. It was never they're going to give it back. It was they made the option that they have the option to lease it back to the city and they're going to buy it eventually for $20 million. That happened the very first time. So now 6 months later, they're going to sell it back to the city. Like they already told us that.
Yeah. It was a first right refusal contract. And I mean, when I look at the details of that, I'm like, ugh.
So let's talk about it. It's only worth $20 million. If I gave you $20 million to go get an acre on the beach front in Manhattan Beach, it'd be like, good luck with that one. It's not going to happen. So my thoughts is they stole legacy wealth from them. And now they're trying to write it off as reparations. First of all, the land is worth more than $20 million. And I would have came into court with all types of, here's the Hilton Hotel They started in 1950, and their first hotel had 6 rooms, and now they have 4,000 hotels. Here we go to Renaissance. Here we go the what you call it, and blah blah
TJ,
blah.
their argument was, but we had it appraised.
Nah, this doesn't matter. You're going to give me market value for the land, and then we're going to talk about arrears. What do you call it?
Mm-hmm.
Where you hurt me, or what word am I looking for? I just said this. I'm talking about
Damages.
damages. I got proof that every hotel chain
Consequential damages.
I have proof right here that I have the history of all the hotels in America or in that area, and they all started around the same time, 1950, 55, 61, and they all have 3 and 4,000 hotels, and they're worth trillions of $200-300 billion. So we would have been worth the same thing. We would have been a hotel magnet family had you guys not taken it. So to offer us $20 million back, that's a slap in the face. That's a slap in the face in a major way. So they're doing that because there's a lot of lawsuits on the pipeline. And I said, watch this. This is the bigger play here. So sure enough, here we go. One of the same attorneys, they just broke another story. It's on my page as well, saying that in Santa Monica, they took a hotel from a Black family that was purchased in 1950 on the beach in Santa Monica. And they took it from him, and now the Viceroy sits on that land. And you know that's a very expensive hotel. So here we go again. They're suing, and the lady used the key word. She says she's dealing with over 100 cases of eminent domain land that they took from Black people, and half of them are right here in California. This is one attorney, wow. one law firm. One law firm, and period. Now, you know, it's hundreds of law firms around the country, thousands if that. So if there was 50 people in California and one was Brutus Beach, the next one was Santa Monica Beach, what else is on that list? You see what I'm saying? So they see these lawsuits piling up, and they know they're going to have to pay, because now we have this monster of an opportunity to promote this stuff. It's called TikTok, and they can't control it. So they can say, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is the strategy. Let's pay these people $20 million, and let's just get this thing going. We're going to say we're giving it back, but we're not going to give it back. We're going to do this, and this is how it's going to go. So from now on out, when the rest of these cases come up, we're going to get people comfortable with giving the land back, just like with the guy Crump. What's the Black attorney that every time somebody gets shot and killed?
Crump.
He immediately goes for the civil. He's like, okay, well, civil attorney. Nobody goes to jail. We just want the money. So here we go again. Santa Monica. Well, they just, at least they want their money. See, they're grooming us with that language, instead of, like, if it was me, I'd be like, I want my land back, or give me something compatible to what you took. I don't want the money. Give me my damages, but give me my land back, because you cannot replace that land.
Can't replace it.
$20 million is not enough.
Especially when let me jump in here with, you mentioned Santa Monica, Manhattan, and I shared on my page, as a result of what we've been seeing, they're also going after the city of Palm Springs, because there apparently was a community of Black and brown people living in Palm Springs that had no notice, had no relocation money. You talk about displacement, their houses were just burned.
Yeah.
Time to go. You guys got to go. And so now that there's a group of people and their descendants that is suing the city of Palm Springs for that. And like you said, now because of social media, people are now taking up the right to media, right? The right to self-media, and share what's happening, because we can't depend on mainstream media that's controlled by, Jeff Bezos owns one of them now, right? Like, he owns one of the newspapers, and, all these big folks are owning all these different media companies. So this is really very interesting, especially at a time like this, when land is this scarcity we're seeing. I shared with you what I thought about LA now. I mean, LA is becoming like the new San Francisco. Everything's going up. I've said those who have a backyard will be prime real estate because everyone's trying to build on every square foot of land. And so if you have a backyard, you are going to be such a prime real estate in these next coming years and decades.
Well, let's talk about it. There's different transitions. There's different levels of gentrification. The first level is the flipping level. They need to flip the houses so they can bring them. Like LA was like 100,000 when we first started having this conversation. So they flipped its way up to push those houses up to $1 million, right? So now
Yeah.
got them to 1 million. Now the developers can afford to come in there and tear the $1 million houses down and build brand new houses, right? So now they're building brand new houses going for about 2 million. So once that's done, they've already deemed that they change the zoning to where they got to bring in 10 million more people in there by 2050. So you're going to have 10 million more neighbors by 2050. So the only way you're going to be able to do that is bulldoze the whole city for the most part and build the brand new, huge 195,
Structure.
300 units, 500 units, and they're getting big money for those. But let's talk about something else real quick. I want to throw you something. Tie this all in. This whole thing about your DNA, get your DNA, find out where you're from in Africa, right?
Mm-hmm.
So basically you're saying, oh, okay, I'm from Africa. I just went and got my DNA done and I'm from Ghana. And they're like, okay, we got you down. You saying you're definitely from Ghana? Yep. Okay, cool. Check. We got you. You're originally from Ghana. You've admitted that you were a slave and you were brought over here by ship, right? But the real movement that's coming up, they've convinced everybody to go do that. But the real movement is this conference I'll be speaking at, where they're talking about we are the original people. We are originally here.
Right.
So what? If I was originally here, I have some ancestral land over here.
Correct.
That land that I own is called downtown Los Angeles. My grandmother owned some land called, it was a black woman that owned downtown Los Angeles. It was a black woman that owned Beverly Hills. Another one owned Beverly Hills. This was black property, but they don't want us relating to that. If they say we were here, then it's going to be like, what Indian background? What is it called? Or we were Cherokee, or we were this, and we owned all of that. The whole Manhattan Beach was my family. When they start tying those ties in, it's going to be ridiculous. That's why they're trying to separate us from that right now. Well, you've already said you're from Ghana and Senegal. What are you talking about? That was your land in Palos Verdes. Your family, your great-great-grandmother was not a slave, and you got a piece of paper saying that you guys used to own all that land, a hectare of land or something like that,
And this is coming on the eve of the California doing the reparations, what they're estimating it to be.
Yeah.
So they're saying it's 250,000 for the descendants of slaves is what they're calculating is what the reparation should be. They are saying 250,000 and you're nodding your head. So they're saying 250,000, but they're not saying that's necessarily going to be paid in cash.
Right.
They're discussing whether that should be in the form of grants and housing and scholarships for college. So
right. You know what they're doing? They bought in people who are not born here in America, but there's like Jamaican, there's like Ghanaian, some, for example, foreign black people who can't relate to slavery in America. The people who say, oh, black people are lazy. You know what I'm saying? They got so much opportunity here in America. They're not seizing the opportunity. You know what I mean? These are the people that are deciding on reparations. Now, who picked those people? You see what I'm saying? None of those people who are a part of that. I think it's just the president of the school. I think they put that together at San Diego State or something like that. The president might be African American, but the board people, the people who are doing all the figuring, they're not really African Americans whose grandparents were slaves. You see what I'm saying? They didn't go through that whole thing. They just moved here in 1974. You see what I'm saying? So these are the people deciding. But I look at it like this. If I was on that board, you always start off with, okay, what did you do with the Jewish community? What did you do with the Chinese? What did you do? Okay, we want to be comparable to those people. Because the Jewish community, they get a check every year. No offense, no disrespect to the Jewish community. I'm just comparing examples. We got to have a model to go from. Now, from my understanding, aren't other people getting a check every year? Like they giving them $1 billion a year every year for the last 50 years or something like that for the things that people have went through?
Yeah.
Why are we getting different treatment? Why are they talking about college? I'm like, I don't want college. I'm a business owner. I want tax free. No more taxes for me. I get taxes. Period. And then they said that there was no taxes until they ended slavery. Once they ended slavery, they said, okay, well, we got to keep a way to stay in their business. Let's create taxes. And that's how that happened. So we need to remove that. Just like when Bruce's Beach, we were talking, going back to that. I want to be grandfathered in. When they bought that land, there was no taxes on that land. There was no zoning. You can do whatever you want. So I want to be grandfathered in. Take me back to 1950 when my great-great-great-grandfather bought that land. There was no zoning. There was no nothing. It was, I can do no taxes. I can do whatever I wanted with my land. So anything after that, that shouldn't affect me. I want to be grandfathered in. So for those attorneys not to be using that language, something's wrong. So what I've noticed about America, they're really smart. They know that, okay, they're gonna sue us, right? They're gonna sue us, so they'll go, okay, well, we better go get our token people, you know what I'm saying, that look like them. You know what I'm saying? Good. What I say? Can I say it? Yeah. We better them, and we're gonna have them go out and file the class action lawsuit on our behalf. We're gonna have them sue us. That way we can control the narrative. We can control the amount of the pressure, the burn, the hit, how much we're going to lose because they're working for us. They're doing whatever we say. So that's exactly what they're doing.
So as you shared that, I have to share this perspective. So I've been in the fight against these PACE liens, right? The PACE and HERO liens, because I feel like during LaDonna's like, yes, tax free for life. You're gonna have some people say vote for TJ soon. TJ for president.
I'll do all of these things if you vote for me.
Right. And one of the things that I've noticed, which is really frustrating right now. In fact, there was another property lost to a PACE lien. A senior was targeted. I think she was 76. I just drove by her property. I wanted to check in to see kind of was she able to resolve, the past due amount. So you're talking about a past due amount of $6,000, $8,000. That when she did this PACE lien to do home improvements on her property, I think she got windows or hardwood flooring, and they tacked it into her property taxes. Property tax goes up. She's a senior, retired, kind of on a fixed income per se, and so she could no longer pay the increased property taxes. So she goes in default. I met with her, I consulted with her, and she was just really confused about how that transpired. What really bugs me about this is that it's not getting the attention it should be getting. And so her property is on the market. It's under contract for $650,000, and she's off of Crenshaw and West Boulevard, and that's exactly where the transit is passing. And when I see this, I just get so upset, TJ, because it's so painful to see homeowners who had good intention, but there's a bigger plan here for them. If you've been in your property for 40 to 50 to 60 years, there's a much bigger plan happening, and it has to do with this PACE lien and HERO lien that no one is talking about. Let me just touch on this, and we'll get back to. I mean, all this is tied in when we're talking about monetizing this, right? So, 2008, we were coming out of the bubble, right? This is when those PACE liens and the HERO liens were approved in 2008, and it kind of went under. And there are a lot of people that were getting screwed, losing their homes. The council people, folks, approved it. And one of the things that people didn't realize that was happening at that time is while everyone is focusing on the foreclosure crisis, here we have this growing issue. We had a new subprime called PACE and HERO lien. I recently just read the case from the Department of Justice, who sued Freddie Mac, because Fannie and Freddie said, we're not going to buy homes, right? This is FHA, Fannie, Freddie. We're not going to buy homes with with PACE liens or hero liens, right? We're not, because they hold first lien position. Do you know the Department of Justice sued them and said, you're hurting homeowners?
Mm.
You're hurting homeowners from this opportunity.
Wow.
And here we are, fast forward, that case, that lawsuit was in 2010. Fast forward, here we are recently, and I talked about it on the last show. We talked about the Department of Justice has now just settled a class action lawsuit with one of the companies that was funding the PACE lien. So isn't that funny? They switch sides, TJ.
Oh, yeah. You know, they call it the long game. They call it strategy. So let's take it away. Let's take it back to the origins of this thing. You remember what year did 9/11 happen?
Leah was my little girl with 2001.
Okay, so let's go back then. George Bush was running, right? All of a sudden, what happened back then was the FBI had discovered that the banks were doing this new thing called adjustable rate mortgages. They were creating all these dummy banks, opening up subsidiaries. You know, because remember, it was Wells Fargo, it was Washington Mutual, blah blah blah,
countrywide,
and all of a sudden, these new banks popped up out of nowhere, and they were funding all the loans. Like, who was these banks funding? I never heard of this mortgage company before. And then all of a sudden, the FBI, I'm watching it on the news. They're like, hey, they're about to move in and go after this bank. And then they said, hold on, wait a minute. It's more than just this bank. It's other banks doing it. I think all of them's in on it, right? Boom, planes crash into buildings, so they say, right? All of a sudden, George Bush walks into, guess where? Guess where those loans were going at? Guess where the FBI was about to raid?
Where?
The Twin Towers. Because that's where the loans were coming from. It was coming off of Wall Street. They were putting that whole thing together. All of a sudden, planes hit the buildings. All of a sudden, the president comes in and says, whatever y'all doing, leave that alone. I need y'all to find out who did that.
Right. So here it is, where we first started this journey and conversation is with this article behind me. When Wall Street is your landlord. That was in 2017. Everybody was waiting for shadow inventory to hit the market, right? They're like, where are all these foreclosures, this mass foreclosures? And they never hit the market. And they became what? Essentially annuities. They became these rental portfolios, these annuities that Wall Street were like, we're making more money here.
Right.
Guaranteed.
Right. Let me tell you how far back I was in the loop. That's why I say, you know what? People like, man, you saw into the future. You know, I was like, we've been saw this coming.
Right.
So we knew about the futuristic cities. How about that? We knew the baby boomers were retiring and they were moving overseas. So there's a huge competition to get the baby boomers money. This is a huge amount of money, of retirement money. So you got Dubai building out, you got Vietnam building Americanized cities that's state of the art, right? AI, smart cities, right? So this is going on all over the world. So America's like, uh-oh. So I knew back then that we're eventually going to be in the age of the Jetsons. So guess what happens? What happens for us? How do we monetize that as a people? How do we get our students involved? How can our people be involved and make money? How do we monetize this? Boom. Okay, if they're going to be the Jetsons, we're going to need more pilots. Hence the Compton Airport. Remember how we down there running the airport?
Yeah.
Because we knew we got all these rappers that got private jets and all of that. We need black pilots. But if we're going to live in the future cities, we're going to have pilot licenses. We're going to have to know how to fly. So let's create this nonprofit. Let's get these young people flying. And that's how we were playing the long game. This is how I saw all of this coming down the pipeline. These kids how to fly drones. They were like, everybody was like, what's the drone back in those days? Well, we wanted to be a part of the loop. So here we are now. It's like up and fully running. Now we got smart cities going on in the Mojave Desert. You see that one?
Wow. No, I haven't seen that one.
So do you think that train that they approved from Los Angeles to Las Vegas was for us? For y'all? That's going to cut right through the middle of the smart city, stop by, so they can go to LA or go to Vegas. You see what I'm saying?
That's the bullet you're referring to that they're building?
Yes, and they're saying they're calling it a regular train. It's going to be a bullet train, but it's really no. They're calling it lesser of a bullet, meaning they're saying, oh, it's only going to go 187 miles with 200 miles per hour, which is going to cut the time to travel to Las Vegas in half, right? But
Mm-hmm.
the reality is that train is going to be able to get there in 40 minutes because we're moving into a time where you're going to have people that says, I live in Vegas, but I work in LA. You see what I'm saying? I take the bullet train. I take the drone to work every morning. We fly in and land on top of my office building. You see what I'm saying? We're moving into this time, but they can't just put it up there. Boom. We've got the bullet trains from Japan and China, and they're here already. And you can get to Las Vegas in 45 minutes. That'll People will be like, oh, I ain't moving. I'm keeping my house, because so they got to bring this stuff in gradually. Because if everybody's not selling fast enough, then it's not going to work. Because they don't want people to sit back and say, wow, my house went from 100 to $2 million. I'm going to just hold out longer. Well, I'm not saying that at all.
To that, there's a question to that. So GD426, shout out on YouTube. Thanks for tuning in. And thanks for those who are connected from next door. I post our events in there. We're bringing our real estate community classes and workshops back. So TJ, definitely will have you out. We're hosting our classes back again, fourth Saturdays of each month beginning March. So I'm excited about that. So the question here is, so GD426 says, I would like to ask one question, TJ. How can the homeowners in Inglewood capitalize off of the gentrification, right? We're talking about monetizing gentrification because of the major developments. And we're talking about Inglewood is a city that is 9 square mile radius.
Right.
9 square mile radius, and there is a lot happening. What are your thoughts to that?
The best way to capitalize off of that area is, which is why I was one of the advisors to the Inglewood School District, is to learn a trade and learn how to get your trade and start a business, because there's not enough construction workers in America, in the world. This is why they're bringing the Ukrainians. This is why they brought the Syrians. This is why they brought the Hispanics over. They're bringing everybody here, but these are all tradesmen. So instead of going in asking for a job, ask for a contract. They're passing out multi-million dollar, billion-dollar contracts every day. And there is not enough people to do the work out there. So if you started a construction company, and you say, hey, I got a construction company and we just hang ceiling fans. You'll pick up a contract with the hotels, and they're like, hey, we're going to put 8 hotels in this LA area in the next 4 years. We need 1 million ceiling fans hung, and that's an $8 million contract, if that makes sense. It's as simple as that. So people are going at it wrong. They're like, oh, I'm going to buy some real estate in Inglewood. Well, that approach, you're going to have to put on some boxing gloves, your bulletproof vests. You know what I'm saying? And you better have some real deep pockets, and prepared. Make sure you got an attorney on speed dial, because they will lock you up if you won't sell. They will lock you up if you get in the way. So it's a lot of different things. You got to have some real thick skin to invest and make money in Inglewood, because that's where the heavyweights are. They're deeming Inglewood to be the tourist destination of the world. They're going to build that thing out, and you're going to be like, wow, I wish I could afford to live in Inglewood. That Playa del Rey is going to leak over to Inglewood. But when you're in Playa del Rey, what do you see? The low 4 millions for a condo, right? Starting off at the low 3 millions and the low 4 millions.
Yeah. And that's so interesting you say that. And that's a great point, especially because I watched someone who just started his HVAC business, and he's like, I'm already at 6 figures just servicing heating and AC units, right? So that's a great point, because you're talking about this mini infrastructure that's happening in Inglewood. What really messed me up, TJ, is I was on the 105. I think it was the 105 or the 110 that I'm driving, and it had YouTube Theater on the freeway sign.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa.
YouTube's in Playa. The NFL's in Playa. All of that stuff is there, but what we have to prepare ourselves. This is why I talk about this stuff in my book. That's why I had to update my book, Monetizing gentrification. You can get it on my website, tjloftin.com, Loftin. It is very important that people know what's going on. So I put it in my book. I start teaching training classes. But what's going on out there is we have to pay attention to. Silicon Valley has expanded into Los Angeles, creating Silicon Beach, because Silicon Valley, the real estate is unprecedentedly high. Homelessness is unprecedented in Silicon Valley. You see what I'm saying? So the
Right.
only way they can afford to continue is to move down to Los Angeles, to where back then they said, "Oh, you can buy a house on the beach for 900,000. They cheap." You know what I'm saying? So now they're here, and there's no more $900,000 houses on the beach. You can barely get a house in Lamert Park for 900 anymore. So
Culver City just passed an ordinance. They're going to attempt to, so they have now passed an ordinance that tents and makeshift shelters is now against the law.
yeah, exactly. They're going to get rid of all the home. At first when I was, and that opened the door for me to be in Lamert Park. It's all of my work. If you follow me, I've been laying out the black print of how we're going to be able to make it, how we're going to be able to live in the future. This is why I became an advisor to the Compton School District, which we were successful with bringing in. We got some of the rappers to bring some money. So we redone Centennial High School and put the trades in the Compton School District. I was able to do my automotive class, and now we got electric cars in there. So now what do you see? They're passing laws saying by 2028, all electric cars in California. So
Yeah, 2025, a lot sooner. In fact, Governor Newsom signed it into law that the new cars now have to be energy efficient. Like there can't be gas operated. They're also doing that with the lawnmowers, by the way. So you can't come 2025, that gasoline operated lawnmower is not going to be is going to be something that you can no longer do. I think that's interesting because that'll affect the trades that you're talking about, right? Like if you don't keep up with what's happening, you're going to be put out of business because now likely the city can cite you and say, "Hey, you're in violation."
And we got to look at you remember when I first came out and started talking about college, I coined the term "college alone is not enough." And
Right.
pissed everybody off and became a part of the NFL, no friends left list, and everybody was mad at me. And he don't know what he's talking about. Now they're all in the news, and they've given us a date. They say by 2053, African American wealth will be zero. And then because of COVID, they moved it up to 2035 now. So now we're seeing they're mad at Bush or Biden because he didn't give them the bailout. But my point is, we have to be someone that's in demand. Or is what you're doing in demand? So think about it. If I know how to work on electric cars, I'm in high demand. If I know how to build a house, I'm in high demand. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, I got my doctorate. It's like, okay, well, what are you doing with that? How many doctors do we have? We got lots of doctors. We don't need any more. They're trying to get rid of some doctors, hypothetically, period. That's where that whole thing came. But my thing is, we have to start putting our youth and ourselves into situations where we'll be highly sought after. Like I look at a lot of tradesmen. Dubai came in and wanted all the best of the best. So if you're an amazing drywaller, you're in Dubai. If you are an amazing HVAC person, you're in Dubai. If you're an amazing painter, you're in Dubai. If you are one of the best framers in the world, you're in Dubai making buku money because
masonry and all of that, right?
they don't care about. They ain't got time for racism. They're like, look, we need the work done, and we need it done fast because we're in a race to get these baby boomers. Now, here we go. America has said it's time. We're going to have to restructure because we're losing. I remember we were talking back in the days. We had a list. I was like, ooh, this many billionaires left America. This many multi-millionaires left America. Now you're seeing the trend of all of these people moving to China, moving to Dubai, moving out of America. So America said, we got to hurry up and get these people back. We need to get people back here. So they're restructuring. They passed the law. They said, oh, if you don't manufacture it in America, we don't want you bringing it here. You see what I'm saying? So they told all these corporations, which is why Toyota left. Toyota like, nah. Because, you got Japanese that'll go into Toyota and say, that black Camry with that black leather right there, I want you to order me this same car. I don't want this one. I want the one from my homeland where my brothers and sisters can benefit from. So the Japanese are loyal to their people. That's why they pulled up anchor in Torrance, California. We lost Toyota, we lost Nissan, and Honda's creeping out the back door. But they tanked the real estate in PV, and people don't realize they got a lot of boarded up mansions, vacant mansions up there that people don't even know about. That's what I told you about. But my thing is, America's bringing all of these corporations to America. It's called I call it corporate expansion. They're expanding into America. So now that they're expanding into America, they're coming in. There's Elon Musk saying, I'm going to build a 10 million, the biggest warehouse in America in Texas. Next thing you know, I need 25,000. He needs 25,000 brand new homes. What is that? You know, wherever Elon goes, they're going to be all his vendors are going to show up. It's
yeah.
Like Marathon lithographic popped up. People are like, what's the lithograph? You know what I mean? So you're going to have maybe 30 other major corporations opening up. So they're building brand new cities all over America. We got all out here in Georgia. Do you know they blocked off? Nissan is no longer coming in through where you guys are in San Pedro,
Long Beach.
Long Beach. They're coming in from the bottom of Georgia now.
Wow.
They're bringing them through the Panama Canal and coming up to right above Florida to the very first port. Now they're expanding both of the ports in Georgia, and they've closed them down in New York. New York said, "Look, we don't want all those ships coming in here anymore." So they're bringing it all through Georgia. This is why they're passing laws in California, like, "Oh, you're a truck driver, you have to work for someone. You can't be a regular business owner. You have to have a job." So they're phasing out the truckers in California, and they're pulling money out of that port so that they can kind of shut it down, because you're going to have too many uber wealthy people live there. Like I said, people know about the redlining, but do you know about the blue line? You familiar with the blue line, Lisa?
Talk about the blue line. Well, hold that thought in terms of the blue line. I want to address a GD426 question about being a homeowner in Inglewood for 10 years and is thinking, would real estate not be a good idea in terms of capitalizing what's happening? But to what you were saying, right? So I'm going to kind of reiterate what you said. You said, unless you have deep pockets for more real estate within Inglewood, because this is why I said it's a 9 square mile radius. Right. What you should be paying attention to is the spillover, right? Because you can only do so much in a 9 square mile radius. Right. So you should be looking at the areas adjacent to that, which is why we saw the boom happen in the Hyde Park Southeast, Hyde Park Northeast, in the Hyde Park areas. We see the spillover happening. And instead of limiting ourselves to just the Inglewood market, realize that Hawthorne is sending out RFPs, requests for proposals, on revamping their Galleria, their mall. And so you've got to be ahead of things, not when it's happening, because when we see it, people, I kid you not, it's been in plan for 15 to 20 years. Right. There was a conversation before you see the manifestation of what's happening. And I'll clue you in here. We're in California, and the governors and your politicians have passed a law that says for the next 3 years, somehow they know the foreclosure crisis is going to last from 2023 to 2026, because this law sunsets in 2026. They are giving owner occupants, meaning first-time buyers, primary homeowners, and nonprofits, first dibs to purchase foreclosed properties. They're telling banks, in fact, I'm going to be having a class on that in March, how to purchase these. Because now, TJ, they're saying even if the investor buys it at the auction, the sale is not concluded until they file a report with the Attorney General's office within 15 days of the sale, reporting who it was sold to and how much it was sold to. In that window is when someone else can match the investor. And if you're a first-time buyer, you can just offer what the investor offer, and you will then win over that foreclosure. They're opening this window just for 3 years, but I haven't seen big news about it.
I tell people all the time, if you wait until you hear it on the news, it's too late. It's too late. I've known about Inglewood for years to the point that I was one of the advisors in 2017. Like, let me help, let me get involved, let me teach these people how to bring the trades back in. Let me help them raise some money, because I already knew what was about to happen. I told the school district, oh, the Rams moved around the corner. They want something from us. The Rams all of a sudden became very friendly to the school district. And I said, I'm looking at all of this land. I'm looking at Inglewood High School. I'm looking at all these schools. And I'm like, ooh, 47 acres, 35 acres in the middle of the city, 10 minutes from the airport. Oh, wow, this land is worth a lot of money. And sure enough, Inglewood was in receivership back in those days. The Rams say, we'll get you guys out of there. Just give us that school. We'll build you a new school over here, but it's going to go straight up. Half an acre goes straight up, and it's not going to really be in Inglewood. So it's things like that happening. So if you got some money, there are a lot of options. I would love to have a donut spot inside of that new Metro Rail thing, the people mover area. I'd love to have something selling bottled water. You'd probably do $1 million a week with no problem if you just had something, But we're in a situation like Inglewood. You're going to start seeing things like you're going to have 4 people that own all the property in Inglewood. They're going to start saying things like, okay, if you want to open a business here, you own a nice business, you're going to start up a business and you want to start one in Inglewood, well, we're going to want 30% if you want to lease out my 8,000 square foot building here. I'm going to need 30% ownership. Okay, well, if you're not happy with that, you think I'm crazy, you don't realize how much real estate I own over here. You go over there, he's going to want 45%.
It's the real life monopoly. That's all. He who controls the land.
The one who owns all the land gets to make up all the rules. So now you look at it's coming. So if you want to make some investments, I tell people all the time, start looking out of state, because right now in Inglewood and California, if you got $1 million liquid, you're going to get a raggedy something boarded up property, something terrible. But you're going to spend $1 million to make 100,000 in Inglewood. But if you go out of state, you'll spend 100,000 to make $1 million. You see what I'm saying? If you find yourself in the right area, like I'm in Alabama, I'm gonna give y'all a little game here. I'm in Alabama. I'm traveling all that. I've been to 25 plus states, over 25 states at least. And I'm in Alabama at Tuskegee, the world's famous school. Just like, oh, this is amazing. People are so respected. But I'm looking at this area and it's a dump. The whole city is like, it's barely a McDonald's out there, Lisa. It's barely a McDonald's in Tuskegee. Across
Raising Cane's. Huh? I said not a McDonald's, a Raising Cane's, right?
You'd be happy to have a Raising Cane. You know what I'm saying? You can't say my son works across the street from the school because it ain't nowhere to work. There ain't no jobs. You come out here to Morehouse in Atlanta, there's garbage all around the schools. So they're coming in, restructuring all of this stuff. It's so much opportunity. When I first came to Atlanta, I could have bought all the houses up around Morehouse for like $1,500 to $30,000 each.
I remember that when I was initially out there. Yeah, 2015. This is before everything happened, and I've consulted some people on their purchases and on retaining their properties. In fact, I was able to successfully assist a family who lost their home to a second. They had a second home equity line of credit. They defaulted on it, lost their home in foreclosure. The investor bought the second and had eviction, the eviction process. And, we were able to negotiate them staying in the home and buying back the property. In fact, they just succeeded that. They stayed in the home. It was a 12-month term. They would pay the investor and buy the house back. And I mean, it's just really interesting to me when you look at what opportunity means, right? Somebody says, oh, there's nothing here.
Right.
We're going to go somewhere else. But then someone like you or myself goes, there's nothing here. We need to start. We need to start planting the seeds.
That's what developers are looking for, because I'm in Georgia, I'm in Alabama, I'm in South Carolina, I'm in Tennessee, I'm in all up and down the coast, and I'm like nothing but fields. But I'm looking up and I'm reading articles. Wow, Nissan is going to open a 13 million square foot building here in this small city with African Americans. In Mason, Tennessee, Ford just bought a lot of land. That's a small black town. I don't know if you're familiar. This is how I connected with Judge Joe Brown. Mason, Tennessee, they got a small black town, population 5,200, right? Ford decides we're going to build a battery plant there, one of the biggest in the country. They don't even want to tell you how big it's going to be. You know what I mean? They're going to build a battery plant. So as soon as they announce we just got the land and we're moving in, the high end, the politicians from LA, hypothetically speaking, came into Compton and said, we're taking over. All you Compton people, you're out of here. We're going to take over. We're going to run this from downtown LA, hypothetically speaking, right? So now it's like we're going to completely come into this small town of 5,200 and build out a whole brand new city, just like where Elon Musk was. He came in, built out a whole brand new city, and all you're hearing is gentrification. They're stealing people's homes. And there's another article I think I'm about to share about a black family. A black couple. How about this? A black couple. This is something we talked about years ago. A black couple have been arrested for stealing people's houses. They were selling houses that they didn't own. So since we know real estate, basically, they had to have had a notary public, right? Somebody's forging documents and going to register other folks' homes. They're like, that house has been sitting there for 3 years. Come on, I need you to notarize this for me. And we're going to go to my local agent and have them sell it. So they're going to run. I'm going to get it recorded. So the first people that I've heard of that was arrested for doing that were black. How about that? Now, wow. This has been going on for years because remember, I was involved in some coaching of some people in View Park, and they're like, TJ, a lot of older black people who are single, who, family is not around, they're disappearing and their houses are popping up being remodeled, and it's like selling it to new people. We're like, where's Miss Betty at? Miss Betty never told me she was selling her house. Miss Betty was in her garden yesterday. Now all of a sudden, here come the contractors pulling up. They're like, oh, we bought this house. Miss Betty moved to Texas. You're like, Miss Betty was my neighbor. I always look out for her. She's like 85. You know what I'm saying? But she didn't have a family. And this is why we tell people, people walking down the street with a dog, and we're like, oh, wow, hey, what's the name of your dog? And we're having fun. They're like, I live in the neighborhood. And you're all excited. Oh, wow, welcome to the neighborhood. But see, we got to start digging deeper and say, where exactly do you live? You know what I'm saying? Because what they're doing, those are not people who are literally moving in.
Where exactly do you live?
Those are investors because they never have children. It's a man, a woman, and a dog. They parked around the corner and they're casing this neighborhood. And then they turn around and they stop to talk to you about the dog. And then they're like, oh, Miss Lisa, what's up with the house over there with the grown grass? Oh, well, that's Miss Johnson. She's like 75. She got cancer. Her son's in prison with life, and her daughter, she hasn't seen her. We don't know what happened to her. We think she's on alcohol.
Right. We're volunteering so much information.
Yeah, we telling people that we don't know too much information, and the next thing you know, she disappears, and here comes the contractors. But the only way to do that is to have somebody that will illegally record the deed. You see what I'm saying? So here's my thing. Real estate like I know real estate. It's very easy. There's a paper trail. So fast forwarding the story to solutions, we have to come up with a new way of doing business, meaning we have to put some type of block on the titles where titles cannot be transferred unless they do this, if that makes sense. And it has to be gone through the family. Before you can sell a house, you have to go through this, and that, and these people have to be notified. These houses' title cannot be just changed in the middle of the night. You see what I'm saying? Because that's just how they're stealing houses. So this is becoming normal. That's why they said, oh, let's have African Americans be the first people to go to jail for this.
Well, that's a valid point because we're talking about that. And GD426 shared about, we touched on the topic about the businesses being displaced. In fact, we opened up the show about that, which is why I wanted TJ on the show, because he's really been a native here. So he's very familiar with SoCal, Compton, LA, Inglewood. He knows a lot of folks within those circles. And so we talked about the businesses that are being displaced. And what TJ had shared was basically getting back to the table of having those attorneys negotiate that if my business will be displaced for how long, and no, I don't want to move, but I want to be built up too. So if you don't like how my storefront looks now, yeah, let's put in some money, beautify it, but put me back like they're putting Bonds and Planet Fitness, and there are two other businesses that will be put back. So yeah, we touched on that, and thank you for bringing that back up. To what you were saying, so prevention, and we'll touch on this in our first class, our first real estate community class in March. In fact, the neighbors voted on what they wanted to learn more about, and it was exactly what you're talking about, mortgage and deed fraud. And so what the county has done recently is now you can sign up for property alerts, that if there is a recordation on your property, they will notify you within 24, 48 hours of that recordation. Now, people should understand this. The recorder's office, the registrar's office is not there to determine whether the recordation of that grant deed transfer is proper, valid, legal. That's not their job. That's why the only thing they can do is notify you that there's been something recorded. That's a lot better than waiting 30 months. I mean, excuse me, 30 days to 6 months to never finding out to when you want to refi, or you deciding to sell it and you realize there's other people on your title. So I think that's a little bit more proactive. What's your take, TJ, on this, on the county's efforts?
If you live in Inglewood, Los Angeles, Compton, Watts, anywhere in that area, that vicinity, I'd be checking my title like once a month. You know,
Agreed.
I had a friend that I was coaching, and that's how I get all these stories. I'm coaching people, consulting people, telling them what the direction. And I had a friend that owned some land out there, and she said that they took her gate down around her vacant lot in Watts, and then they put a new fence up, and then they put a $8,000 bill on her lien against her property, and they threatened to foreclose. And she's like, what is, why are you sending me an $8,000 bill? Says the 77-year-old lady. You know what I'm saying? And she brings it to me, and I'm like, well, wait a minute. She's like, TJ, I had a chain link gate up there. Now there's another gate. That's not my fence. And I'm like, the city, like, well, oh, it was too much crime and blah blah blah. But I'm like, well, you didn't put a fence up around the corner over there. That lot had, they dumping trash over there. Why would you put it up? You know, so they're stealing people's land. So we have to work with our elders, and then especially in church, they're going in people's churches, paying off the pastors, telling them, when somebody got cancer, let us know. We're looking for houses at these addresses. Everything in this zip code we're interested in.
Solicited all that time. You're right. I get, this is what we're looking for. If
Right.
you have this coming up, let us know. This is, no one's paying me though. You know, you guys know I'm an advocate, but to what he's saying, I was in an organization. I don't know, TJ, if we talked about this, but the guy was an investor, licensed real estate, and he worked as LAPD. And he was telling us how LAPD and the city worked to target and cite properties in terms of violation. And basically, you cite it, the fees build up, the person can't pay it. What happens? The city has the right to then take that property. And he was telling me, yeah, that's a whole nother system of taking property. And I'm like, whoa. And people don't realize this, and we're going to wrap this up, TJ, that real estate is very political.
Right. Right.
Very political. This is a very political business, political game. And so really arming you with the information, the resources, and the people that are your advocate is very key to this, right? Not everybody is going to be having the same form of thought or mind. TJ, as we get wrap up, LaDonna's like, this is scary, right? You would think I'm doing a Halloween episode. No, this is real life, as we're talking about the realities of being, homeowners and people of color within these communities that are being targeted, which is why I appreciate TJ spinning it and saying monetizing. Let's figure out how to monetize it. Let's bring solutions. So with that, TJ, your last comments.
I think everybody needs a coach. I'm an advisor.
An advisor. I say it all the time.
Don't just jump in there saying I got $1 million to go invest. Don't just jump in there saying, oh, I know what I'm doing. I'm going to go bust out some real estate and my family are going to be like, she or he's the man. Consult. first. You need to have some classes for myself or somebody like Lisa that can consult you and let you know what's going on. This real estate game in some of these cities are downright dirty. They're not playing fair. So before you make a move, consult, get some advisement from someone that knows. If they're talking like me and Lisa, then yes, but you can't just say my uncle's a realtor, he's cool. My sister's a mortgage broker, she tells me everything. If they're not talking about corporations, corporate expansions, the stealing of houses, strategically moving, no. I can be reached at all my social media is Thomas TJ Loftin, Thomas TJ Loftin, Loftin. My website is tjloftin.com. My book is on my website at tjloftin.com. You can order a signed copy. Other than that, I do speaking engagements. I teach these classes. I'm not just a guy out here that, I teach real estate classes. I teach you gentrification because you should not be involving yourself in real estate without first learning about gentrification. Too many people are losing because they don't understand that gentrification piece. You think I have the money, I'm going to be good, I'm going to make some investments. That's not how it works in this economy. Things have changed because of all the corporations that are expanding. You got trillionaires moving into areas and politicians bending over backwards to accommodate them. That's all I want to say, Lisa.
I appreciate it. Bree dropped your number there. If you want to connect with TJ directly. And this is quite a book. And so I heard you updated this too.
Oh, yeah.
I have the color version.
That's 190 pages. The old one was black and white, 149 pages. That's 190 full color. Because as soon as the old book,
so I have the current one. Yeah. Mine is color. I have the current one, right?
Where you get that one?
September 2021. I got my signed copy.
Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Everybody get that book. Start off with the book. If you I don't have that kind of money, start off with the book. It's $45, $50 to your door.
And I think to what he's saying, right? So let me just jump in here. To what he's saying is really it just gets your mind thinking outside of the normal routes of real estate. And that's what we're hearing right now in our market is these creative ways and creative solutions. Be careful when you're doing creative deals. Be very careful when you're doing creative deals. Okay. So I can say a lot on that, but TJ's been great having you back on the show. Every time we have you back, there's always something new and something you've got your hands in that you bring to the people, you bring to the community here. So for us to think about, because it's the hard conversations no one wants to have, right? And no one wants to talk about these conversations about properties being stolen, eminent domain, these unfair contracts, unfair dealings. But let's realize, you guys, that if we don't have these conversations, we're going to then wait until we become the victims and hoping that 10 years later in a class action lawsuit, somebody's paying us settlements, reparations. Because remember, when the housing crisis happened and the Wells Fargo was doing robo-signing, 10 years later, after that class action lawsuit happened, those homeowners who lost their property got $10,000 to $15,000 in damages. Wow. What are you going to do with that? You've lost the wealth in home ownership. You can do nothing with that. The people that have just recently lost their homes due to this PACE lien and these hero liens, the recent lawsuit, well, at least they're releasing the liens on those who still have it. But what about the people that actually had to sell their homes? I unfortunately had to sell people's properties that were up against foreclosures because there was nothing we could do in our fight against the PACE lien and the hero liens until the DOJ decided to switch sides and now sue them. So it's wild out here. But TJ, thank you. A lot going on. For those of you who are checking us out for the first time, thank you. Make sure you like, subscribe, and connect with us on all your favorite social media platform. TJ, I appreciate you. Stay up, stay productive, be well, and be safe. We'll connect with you soon. Take care, you guys.